This is Car Guys New England, your YouTube channel for anything automotive.
Bad, cause it's bit bad. She want me the bag, like chips at the front. This fuck, I'm fly like a pelic in my bed. I like get my boy pelic quick. They get gonna put up on the elephant cut. My trunk, yeah, it's in the front. Of course, it's in the back. This a big. This a real big difference. You just want a club. I just need them racks. You just want a party. I just want a rock star.
This is Jay with Car Guys New England, and today we're going to be working on the lowrider once again. Today we're going to put together the hydraulic pumps, but first we're going to start out with modifying the motors, and then we'll move on to the next steps. Okay, because of the parts shortages, I have been getting parts from different vendors, but the idea was to put together the best setup that I could put together under these circumstances. So these are polished motor end caps from Black Magic Hydraulics, and the reason I want to put these on my pumps is because they take a bearing in the rear, unlike just the bushing in the back of these motor covers. So we are going to convert these motors over to ball bearing end caps. We'll get started with this. I believe these are 10mm nuts to take these apart, and then on the other side of this there is these nuts just to hold them together. So let me get out all the stuff to do that, and then we'll start converting over all my motors. Okay, so I am just taking this ball peen hammer and just gently tapping around that to get that in place. So this one's about halfway in. Got a little bit more ways to go. And that one is all the way in, so let me do the rest, and then we'll start taking apart the motors. Now all 4 bearings have been installed. Let's take apart the motor. I'm just gonna gently put it on its side here on the bench, and just grab what I need for tools. All right, and I was correct. It's a 10mm socket, so we're just going to undo these, and then you'll see the locking nuts on the other side. So let's just undo those, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so the 2 retaining nuts have been removed. At this point, you can just slide out the motor bolts, which I'm doing. And we got a washer on that. Okay. And then at that point, you should just be able to remove the end cap. That comes off. One thing you will notice, there's a little keyed portion on this, and you'll see it on the motor. So in order to put these motor caps on, we're going to have to pull that out. And the easiest way to do that would just to use a pair of pliers like this. I'm going to need my other hand, but I'm just going to grab that and pull that right out of the motor. I'm just going to twist and pull. All right, so that piece has been removed from the motor. So now we'll be able to put the end cap on. I will go back, and I am going to put a liquid electrical tape on some stuff on the motors, just to kind of help insulate them a little bit more. And also these motors will need to be broken in, but right now I'm just trying to get them together and looking nice right now. All right, so the end cap is ready to go back in, so I'm going to get that back in and out the correct spot on the motor. You can already see that they shrunk wrap the bolts so it doesn't arc to that. So let's get this together, and then we'll move on to finishing up the other motors. Okay, so that cap is on the motor, and I just put back the retaining clips for now until I put them on a pump. So I'm just going to finish converting over all 4 motors, and then once I'm done with that, I'll move on to assembly of the pumps. One of the original bushings that was in the old caps, and here's the ball bearing, so huge improvement. All the motors are done. One thing to note, there is a piece of plastic over the splines of this just to protect them, so make sure you take that off, obviously, before you try to install these. All right, so now we have one of our blocks, Schrader valves, a Mazzocchi pump head, one super seal because we're going to replace the seal that's on that. A fitting, you'll notice the return port is threaded. A check valve, I'll explain that in a little bit. Number 8 O-rings for the pump head. Tank O-ring. And the pump head bolts. And also I have the washers here somewhere. Oh, there they are. So there's the washers. And some Teflon tape for assembly. So let's get started, shall we? So one of the first things that we're going to do is take this 3/8 fitting that goes into the return. Just double check its fit real quick. And it looks like that fits, so that's good. But what I'm going to do is put some Teflon tape on it. So since it's screwing in a certain way, you've got to make sure that the tape goes with the direction that you're threading it in. And then at that point, make sure that you skip the first few fittings because you don't want any of that Teflon junk getting into your dump valves or pump heads or check valves or anything like that. And that's what a properly wrapped Teflon fitting looks like. So I'm actually going to screw that into one end of the check valve. I'll tighten it up in the vise and we'll keep moving along here. Okay, so I'm going to do a quick test fitting. Basically, I'm going to take this blue cap off and screw this in and then make sure that I can fit the pump head onto the block and this check valve will clear. All right, so the check valve, what it does. Obviously, a check valve only allows fluid to travel in one direction. As you can see at this, it actually has a schematic diagram on it of the check valve, so fluid can only flow to the right of the screen. It can't go in. So the idea is that this will protect your dump valves from backflow, basically, or back pressure. So that's the whole idea behind the check valves. As you can see, I'm going to have to take a little bit off of the check valve down there. It's not really going to affect things, but I just wanted to mock this up just so I could see this in action. So I'm just going to take one side, take it to the grinder, and then I'll see if we can get the pump head to sit against this nicely. All right, so I did have to grind down a little bit of the side of the check valve. So now what I'm going to do is install the number 8 O-ring there, and also remove the original seal off the back of this Marzocchi and install the super seal. So I'm going to go ahead and do that stuff. Okay, so using these pliers, I just got this simple steel seal off, and now we have the newer style, which I'm going to put on. Okay, and that's not seated in all the way, but it will seat in when I actually start attaching that to the block. And since we want maximum holding power so we don't blow out O-rings, you'll notice that there's 4 steel inserts. The pump heads come with 2 empty holes. We're going to have to remove the bolts from the top, and then we'll just use new bolts to bolt those through into the block. All right, so at this point, I made sure that the number 8 O-ring is good. I removed the back pressure plug, hole plug. So now what I need to do is just get these bolts to bite, and then I'll slowly torque this down. At this point, we can put our tank O-ring on, real simple. Just put that on, get that around the edges, and yep, just carefully, without damaging it, get it on there. So that is set. Now we need to get the Schrader valve in, so we're going to do the same thing. We're going to use a little bit of Teflon tape and then crank that into there. So the Teflon tape has been applied to the Schrader valve. That's just going to go right in here. So we'll get that started into the threads. Okay. And now we're just going to use this 7/16 deep socket. And you'll see that fits that perfectly. So we'll just crank that down a little bit, and then the Schrader valve will be installed. All right, so we're getting the motor ready. So I'm taking off this little protective sleeve here. So I got that off. And you'll notice the motor key. So that will just fit onto the motor. So now the motor is almost ready to be installed to the block. It's just the 10mm bolts, but I need to take these retainers off to do this. So I'll do that real quick. Slide that into the hole where it'll make contact with the shaft for the pump head. And then I'll just have to remove all the plugs on this stuff, and then this will be ready to be buttoned together. All right, so I got the motor mounted onto the pump block. So now all I have to do is remove all the plugs on the bottom, the front, and from this. And then at that point I can put the tank on it, put the tank rods and the end plate on, and then this pump is ready to go. All right, so I got some nice brand new chrome tanks with welded bungs on them. They pretty nice. So I'm just going to very carefully put that on here, and then I'll install the tank rods. But pretty much you just go like this, and then mate it up with the holes, get the tank rods in, and then put the end plate on, and then don't over tighten it like a idiot. These tanks mushroom very easy if you over tighten them, and there's no need to do that. Okay, I got my tank rods in. I'm going to put the pressure plate on, just snug that up, clean the pump up, and that is a complete pump for the Lowrider Caprice. All right, and there is one completed pump. And I'm just going to do the rest of these, get them done. And next video will be getting these in the car and putting fittings on them and all that fun stuff. So if you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to give the video a like. And if you have any questions or comments, be sure to comment down below. And also be sure to check out our other videos about the Caprice build. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Until next time, take care.